This is the AverMedia Live Gamer... Nope, sorry, this is the Razer Ripsaw HD. I finally got a chance to review Razer's capture cards in this video. I got this one sent for review by Razer themselves, the first time I've ever gotten a Razer review unit, despite having reached out many times. And then, as I mentioned that I was finally getting to cover this, a Discord member by the name of Diamond Rice let me borrow their original Razer Ripsaw, so I could check that out as well. And I will come out and say it, as I've been saying since the first one, the first Razer Ripsaw was a rebrand of the AverMedia Live Gamer Extreme, and this is more or less just a rebrand of the AverMedia... It's so dark on camera, it's so hard to see. There is a Razer logo on it, but this is just basically a rebrand of the AverMedia Live Gamer Extreme 2. However, they did restore the headset and microphone inputs here on the front of the device, which AverMedia actually removed from their Live Gamer Extreme 2. So while it is, for the most part, the exact same product, they did actually add functionality back to it, which I can appreciate. Now, I did try out the original Razer Ripsaw as well. Similar product, of course, but only supported 1080p 60 throughput and capture, and the driver situation was a nightmare. It was absolutely garbage. They have already abandoned the drivers for the original Razer Ripsaw. You have to download an old, outdated version of Razer Synapse, not the newest version, and run that alongside normal Razer Synapse if you already have that running. And it did not work with any 720p signals, despite that being in the spec for the device and supported by the original AverMedia capture card. So that was very bizarre. Honestly, it was not a good capture card experience. Thankfully, with this one, it works without Razer software. And honestly, I will add it at the end of the review, but I just haven't touched Razer software because, no. It was a good bonus that it doesn't do that. However, there is an auto-run installer that connects whenever you connect this, that at least the first time you plug it in, it will recognize and be like, hey, you want to install some Razer Synapse? And I said no. However, I also noticed when I was doing Windows updates, it actually popped it up in front of my Windows update, a screen that I didn't think Windows could actually open in front of. So that was interesting. On to the good notes, though. This supports 4K 60Hz pass-through, for input and output, which means you can play your Xbox One X, PS4 Pro, or your PC if desired in full 4K 60, detected on both consoles without a problem, 4K 60 RGB, and then you capture it in 1080p 60. However, no high refresh rate pass-through or capture is supported, no HDR is supported, and no 1440p is really supported. They list on the Amazon page that 1440p 30 FPS capture is an option. Odd choice, but I can't figure out how you would set that up whatsoever, and I don't think that's really a thing unless you're sending a 1440p 30 hertz signal. When you set it up through your computer control panel, it only detects 1080p as the max, and if you try to force it with something like the NVIDIA control panel, then it's just, you can see the scaling artifacts and the blurriness, it is just downscaling 1440p to 1080p on your graphics card before it spits it out to the capture card, and the output signal that you get back out of the capture card is still 1080p, so that means it's only doing 1080p there. So no 1440p PC support as well, or at all. Physically, it's a nice little black box with the Razer logo on the front, nothing too gaudy or obnoxious. Headset inputs and indicator LED on the front, HDMI 2.0 pass-through input-output on the back, as well as a USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type-C cable or connection on the back for you to use primarily with a Type-C to Type-A cable for most computers. One huge plus that I'm a big fan of, not only did they restore the headset inputs, which I'm finding more and more to be useful for certain populations, they actually have the microphone input that is on the front as a separate audio device that you can mix and, control separately in OBS Studio. This seems obvious, however, most of the capture cards that I've reviewed with this capability mix it all within the captured card itself to one singular output device, and you sort of have to use like a the first party like audio mixer or something to actually change levels and get a balance, and you get no separate devices in OBS. This one gives you two separate devices in OBS, which lets you mix and master right there where you want it, which is huge. And I believe they do have in the Razer software a separate audio control panel if you wish to use that as well, which is good to see. So this is a microphone test using the Sennheiser PC37X, I believe, Mastrap Edition gaming headset hooked up to the Razer Ripsaw HD capture card. Something interesting to note, and I will get separate screen capture of this, is you actually have the ability to control the volume that is sent to Windows or OBS of both the HDMI input and the microphone input separately within Windows with these devices as well, which further helps with mixing. But as I mentioned, having the devices separately, as separate devices in general, just makes everyone's life a lot easier. So that is a huge plus for this capture card in my book, because most capture cards do this feature wrong. Kudos. As far as nerdy details goes, this capture card supports a YUY2 or MJPEG signal. However, if you're in OBS, at least use YUY2, period. At 422 chroma subsampling, which is fine, what you'd expect for most capture cards of this type. In OBS, I'm looking at roughly 68 milliseconds of input latency from capture card to OBS preview full screen. Take away 1 millisecond, so 67 milliseconds on average capture card latency. Nothing too crazy. Like, that's fairly low for some of the capture cards I've tested. Actually, it's probably towards the like lower mid of most of the capture cards I've tested. I'll have a little graph on screen here. But overall, the footage looks good. No major concerns. I was able to stream Xbox One X gameplay, PS4 Pro gameplay, got some Halo in, got some Call of Duty in. I had one issue. If you ever wonder why I have really crappy footage, like not quality, but like gameplay wise, in some of my reviews of these capture cards, it's because of situations like this, where there is no issue reported in OBS logs whatsoever, none in the stats menu, no frames were dropped, and yet this awesome overkill recorded at 20.18 frames per second. The entire session that I recorded all those clips were just scrapped. Sad. So, you get some clips here. I need to find a better way to like share capture card clips with you guys so that you can see, you know, more samples than what I can provide in this video. I'll have to figure something like that out. But I did want to note that I was looking at the Amazon page just to get the pricing and stuff like that, and there were a lot of negative reviews. Like, it only has like 3 stars or 2.5 maybe, because there's a lot of negative reviews of people reporting audio problems and not being able to just get it to work at all problems. And I think that might be due to some of their driver wonkiness or something, but I didn't have any of these issues. So it's really weird that people are reporting so many of this, and again, it's Amazon reviews, so those aren't always the most accurate, but your mileage may vary a little bit. As far as pricing goes, this is currently listed on Amazon at $153, which is $3 more than the AverMedia card that it's a rebrand of, which is interesting, but you are technically getting more functionality for that cost. However, typically in my experience, at least with their other cards, AverMedia will put their cards on much more competitive sales more often, so you can probably get it cheaper. If you're trying to choose between them, do you want the headset input or not? Save a few bucks if you don't. But otherwise, pretty competent card. I was very impressed with it. The build quality is actually phenomenal, and it's interesting to see. I think Razer's getting better at their kind of rebadge efforts, because their first generation of products that were outside of their normal mouse and keyboard and headset scope were not super great. The original Ripsaw, the original microphone, like some of that really wasn't good, and I refuse to like talk about them in a positive light or like promote them to anybody, because I heard so many people who brought them up because I didn't get a chance to review it, who would come to me and just be like, this thing is, the drivers are bad, you know, X is bad, whatever. People had a lot of negative experiences with it. And I've been using this for about 2 weeks now pretty consistently and have not had any major issues. So I am fairly excited with this for Razer's second capture card outing. Of course, you do have a lot of capture card competition on the market now, despite what some other reviews of this device may say. There's actually been a lot of capture card competition for a while now. You have Elgato's entries, the HD60S, the 4K60 Pro, HD60 Pro, Camlink. AverMedia is just popping out cards pretty much every 6 months, has a lot of options you can choose from, and then there's now a lot of third-party solutions, or, I mean, they're all third-party, but like more generic brand solutions, such as from like Cloner Alliance, and I looked at one from Live, and a lot of weird brand names that are really affordable but work fine. And so you have a lot to choose from. Definitely look at pricing, and I have lots of reviews in the playlist linked in the description below, as well as my full Google Doc documenting all the nerdy details of all these capture cards if you want to compare. But I went in with fairly low expectations given what I heard about the reputation of the first capture card, and I was very pleased with this one. So product links, affiliate links will be in the description below. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe for more tech education. I'm EposVox, here to make tech easier and more fun, and I will see you in the next one.